Chapter 248, Waiting from Both Sides. With both sides being aware of the whereabouts of Helmosuin's manuscript, this matter would come to an end tonight. Therefore, the ambassador would have the freedom to take revenge. Is this a reason for the impending danger? Klein gained a rough understanding of the divination results and the inexplicable omen. If he didn't have the language of foulness charm, or the powerful bodyguard that cost him 1,000 pounds for 3 days, he would have shamelessly gone to the police station or the Church of the God of Steam, and Machinery's headquarters in Backland, St. Hiron Cathedral for a temporary stay. He could avoid any possible attacks and await the assassination of the ambassador. As for how successful the assassination would be, Klein wasn't confident either. He had already considered the worst outcome and had a plan for it. But now, with double the preparations, he no longer wanted to avoid it. He would stay at home and pretend that he knew nothing. Deep down, he was even looking forward to having his attackers come knocking at his door. Sequence 900 Merceau was killed by me. If they sent someone else again, they would at least be a Sequence 7, or even a Sequence 6 or 5. They might even come in numbers. But regardless, as long as I finish them, I'll obtain formulas and beyonder characteristics. I can then make up for some of my losses. Yes, I'll tell Miss Bodyguard that I had good luck and managed to benefit from the black ear that I bought and became a beyonder. After all, when the battle becomes intense, there's no way to hide it at that point. Besides, what I'm saying is nearly the truth. I did benefit quite significantly from the black ear as Klein considered what would soon follow. He almost instinctively drew the sign of the crimson moon on his chest. May the goddess bless me that the beyonder who comes is the one from the seer pathway. He prayed silently. As he thought of this, he looked around the room for his bodyguard. He was worried that she would run away without a sound after hearing the whole story. The lights in the dining room were warm, illuminating the coffee table, sofa, and chairs. There was no one else in the room except him. As Klein gradually grew nervous, he suddenly saw a face appear on the glass cover of the gas lamp in the living room. The face was pale, with pale gold hair and delicate looks. This lady is quite confident in her own strength. Klein's mind calmed down, and he whispered to himself, I'm also a beyonder. I made a gamble on an item I bought from Casper's gathering and benefited from it. But it was only beneficial for me. What he said was true. No matter what method he had to face, these sentences would endure a truth test. But when these two sentences were put together, one would think that the benefits made him a beyonder. The face on the glass cover nodded slightly and quickly disappeared without any other reaction. Klein's expression didn't seem to change, but he secretly exhaled in his heart. Without taking off his coat, he went back to the sofa and picked up a newspaper and started reading. After a while, the tinkling sound echoed again. Someone had rung his doorbell again. Who is it? Klein immediately tensed up. He stuffed his hands into his pockets, touching his tarot cards and language of foulness charm. He slowly walked towards the door, and with the help of his abilities as a clown, he predicted what he would see after opening the door. The crimson moon was still faintly visible, the elegant gas lamps were unchanged, and a sergeant in a black and white checkered uniform with 3 chevrons on his epaulets was impatiently waiting by the door. He had a short, brown beard, and he was none other than the sergeant who had dealt with Sherlock Moriarty's case of self-defense. I think Jurgen mentioned his name. Sergeant Faxine. Well, I can receive the 10-pound bail tomorrow, or the next day. What is he doing here? Did MI9 send him to find Ian Wright? Or to inform me that I should temporarily hide away from danger? Confused, Klein grabbed the handle. Inside the Indus Embassy of Backland's West Borough, the lights were on. The scent of various perfumes and alcohol, accompanied by melodious melodies, stretched out to every corner. A ball was being held. During his years as an ambassador, Bakerlin had often held balls at the embassy, inviting the kingdom's bankers, big factory owners, philanthropists, and other well-known, rich and powerful people, as well as lawyers. Random opportunities were also given to some of the lower-ranked merchants. In this atmosphere, he would tell the guests about the prosperity and openness of Trier, and how the Intis Republic was no longer dominated by the likes of the nobles, bankers, factory owners, and lawyers. They, directly and indirectly, took over a large portion of the parliamentary seats, determining the direction of the government policies, enjoying true freedom and high statuses. Today, Bakerlin was doing the same thing. With a wine glass in hand, he flitted around the guests, as if to prove that he was present at the ball without leaving. They should have gotten the manuscript by now after learning that Ian Wright appeared at the telegraph office. From that trembling detective, I've been putting plans into action. Now is the time to reap the rewards. Bakerlin, with his thin but classy face, took a sip of the blood-like Ormir wine and headed for the balcony, intending to take a breath of the cool night air. After learning that Ian had sent the telegram, as a veteran conspiracist and professional intelligence officer, Bakerlin was acutely aware that Ian was contacting his superior's superior. Therefore, he quickly made the double spy that had infiltrated the Fasak Empire's backland intelligence team, investigate and obtain the meeting time, location, and manner agreed upon by Ian and the team leader. After that, he pretended that nothing had happened and continued to send people to look for Ian near Bacardi Street. He successfully found Ian and also attracted the attention of MI9. According to his plan, his intelligence officer had deliberately let Ian go, so that MI9 would think that they were on the same starting line. After paralyzing his main opponent, he called in other unexposed intelligence agents to ambush Ian and the Fasak Empire's team leader. He wanted to find the manuscript and smuggle it out of the Lone Kingdom without being detected by the MI9. The situation had progressed as smoothly as he had expected, but the news that came back in the evening left his heart heavy. People from MI9 had actually appeared. They had appeared despite being supposedly fooled. With Razago around, it's definitely not because of divination. Besides, MI9 isn't good at divination at all. That means we have a spy among our ranks. Let's hope that Razago can be one step ahead of them and grab the manuscript to hand over to Shadow for extraction. Bakerlin had deliberately organized the ball in order to avoid suspicion, but as such, he was unable to involve himself with the developments. All he could do was pray that his subordinates would amount to something. According to his plans, once Razago succeeded, he would immediately transfer the items to another intelligence officer, one that had never been activated before. Then Razago would lure MI9 away and, by creating some trouble, keep them out of sight and distract them from his partner. During this process, Bakerlin requested Razago to kill the detective while he was at it. If it wasn't for him, no one from MI9 would have known about it. Everything would have gone smoothly. My involvement with his major gang wouldn't have been revealed, and I wouldn't be transferred back to the country. He actually didn't run away, thinking that MI9 would keep protecting him, and that staying at home is safer than running away. Bakerlin rubbed his face. He had already received orders that after the operation regarding the manuscript had been completed, and he would hand all intelligence matters to the highest-ranking military officer at the embassy and await the arrival of the new ambassador. Bakerlin was rather reluctant to part with Backland. Despite the bad weather and heavy pollution, Backland was one of the most prosperous cities in the world. Besides, the ladies here are more conservative, unlike those sluts back home. Slowly seducing them into bed and removing their restraint, bit by bit, is a very satisfying and fascinating achievement. Unfortunately, I have to bid farewell to these beautiful ladies, Bakerlin thought gloomily. and he felt more and more resentful of the detective who dared to put up resistance. As for Risato's own safety, Bakerlin wasn't worried at all. He believed that as long as Rizago wanted to, as long as he wasn't targeted by a high-sequence Beyonder, he would be able to escape immediately. This was because Rizago had special Beyonder powers. As he lost himself in thought, Bakerlin's eyes suddenly lit up. He saw a young lady in a crimson dress standing at the edge of the balcony with a glass of wine in her hand. She had a pretty face and a gentle temperament. Her hair was ink black and luxuriant, and her light brown eyes seemed to speak volumes. Bakerlin went over at once and began to chat with her. He learned that the lady was the daughter of a timber merchant named Eileen, and that her father wasn't very rich and was trying to make his way up the ranks. With his status as Intis ambassador, Bakerlin quickly received Eileen's affection. After sharing to dances, their bodies became more intimate. "Beautiful lady, I'd like to invite you to my room to sample some Ormir wine of 1286. Eileen replied, almost without any hesitation. "All right." The two of them left the ballroom and secretly went to the second floor. They entered Bakerlin's room, and he ordered the guards to stay away from them and not to disturb him. Before the so-called Ormir wine, 1286 appeared, Bakerlin had passionately brought Eileen to the bed. While romping around in bed, Eileen's simple skirt came undone as her pure, fair arms hugged him, while her hands gripped Bakerlin's shoulders. Her nails and veins suddenly sprouted black, thin, fluffy spider feet. Bang! Eileen's eyes suddenly bulged as white foam poured out of her mouth. Bakerlin retracted the fist that he had used to hit her abdomen and stood up from the bed. He no longer had the hasty actions from before and instead wore a cold expression. "Who sent you?" Bakerlin asked in a deep voice. Eileen attempted to stand up, but the pain was too much to bear. Her eyes were filled with shock and fear. Seeing the expression on the pretty girl's face, Bakerlin smiled and said, "It's true that I'm into beautiful ladies, but I know this problem of mine. So, every time I meet a beautiful lady, I'm especially careful. Speak, who sent you? Don't bother resisting. I'm very good at using fire."